Hey, everybody, welcome to the newly revamped Line Drive Baseball Podcast. What a day, Joe, along with the player, Benny Scala. And we are formerly known as the Twin Bill Baseball Podcast, but, we're trying to change it up here, get some new viewers and all that stuff. So what do you think of the new stuff there, Benny? Line Drive, good enough?
A line drive is a home run. I tell you what, though, I mean, what a scary thing as a pitcher. You're throwing the ball up there at 99 miles an hour. And a lot of these guys nowadays,
Sure.
back in the day, in Little League, we were taught that you had to land on your leading foot and be ready for that ball. A lot of these guys kind of just swing their foot across, the other leg, and they're really not in position to field the ball. And you're throwing the ball into the plate at 99, but the exit speed of a hit can be up to like 120.
Right.
Imagine 120 mile, like the first graphic, that you showed.
Yeah. Charlie Huff.
I mean, how much time you got to react?
Yeah, that was a tough. You got carted off the field. I mean, you could Google and YouTube all those, and there's just hundreds of them. And it's amazing some of these people that survived. These comebackers, as we used to call them. But these are line drive shots, man. So, but we are off and running, and today we are talking about the best and worst trades. Well, let's talk. This really isn't a trade. We're going to talk about kicking off the show, but we're going to talk about Shohei Ohtani signing that outrageous contract. Benny, what are your thoughts on that contract?
Well, a lot of tiff on social media. It's not so much even that the size of the contract, this 10 years, $70 million. It's that he's only taking $2 million a year and he's deferring $680 million. And I'm an accountant by trade. I don't even know how that's going to work. I mean, I don't know if he's going to take it like then $68 million a year over the next 10 years, but I mean, the guy's not going to starve. I think he generates between $40 and $50 million a year.
Yeah, I think that unique contract was all based upon, so they can keep guys like Mookie Betts and the other big players there that they need to, hopefully try to get back to the World Series. But that's just an astronomical number. And of course, he's going to be paid. He'll be paid from the Dodgers 2034 to 2043 is when all that deferred money kicks back to him.
Well, I guess, is this going to set a precedent? Because, obviously the reason why they're doing this is to avoid the luxury tax.
Sure. No,
there is no salary cap in baseball, but, all the NFL teams have a capologist because, at some point this money is going to become part of the payroll.
Right.
So
exactly.
how do they work this? This is a whole new ball game.
Yeah, it's a whole new thing now. I mean, I don't know if there's any money's guaranteed on there. I just don't get it. I mean,
I think the whole thing's guaranteed.
Well, here's the funny part. He doesn't have to move far, right? He went from the Angels to the Dodgers. Unbelievable, So obviously they're going to be lined right up there to obviously produce right away with a guy like Ohtani on the mound and playing whatever. I mean, the guy does it all. If there's anybody who deserves $700 million, this guy does it all. So
I guess what really upset me is there was a lot, and I promised myself that I limit myself to one Facebook argument a day with a fool. And I usually reach that by 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And the last couple of days, it was the argument that I entered into was that Ohtani is better than Babe Ruth.
Oh, geez.
And, the argument is, well, Babe never faced a 90-mile-an-hour fastball.
Sure,
but, you can't use that argument because then if you want to, you'd have to take that argument and apply to any like Ty Cobb, any of the great ball players. Yeah, things were different 100 years ago.
Exactly.
So, you have to take every player in context with their counterparts.
Sure.
Babe Ruth dominated the game of baseball like nobody ever did.
No, exactly. So, well, only time will tell. I mean, I don't know if there's an injury clause in that contract or anything, but nonetheless, there's a new highest paid ball player in town, and his name is Shohei Ohtani. Unbelievable. All right, so first up, we got here Curse of the Bambino. This is another, not a trade, but more or less a purchase. Hey, why don't you do the background on this? I have a graphic afterwards, too. So
all right, yeah. So this was January 5th, 1920. The Boston Red Sox owner, Harry, I guess it's Frazee, I believe it's pronounced.
Frazee.
Sold George Herman Ruth, a.k.a. the Babe, to the New York Yankees for the, like, at the time, astronomical sum of $125,000. That's like meal money now.
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
so Frazee was also a theatrical producer, and reportedly, this not really for sure, but needed the money to finance the play No No Nanette. But as it turned out, it was No No Boston, because the Red Sox didn't win the World Series again until 2004. Hence the expression "curse of the Bambino." But the interesting thing, Joe, is that, and this is the thing that people don't talk about, is
Right.
they won the World Series. They did win this series in 15, 16, and 18. So they were a
Right.
pretty decent team at that time.
Yeah, they were. They were considered almost like the New York Yankees of that era, because
Yeah.
nobody had won it like that. Now, an interesting fact for me growing up, I'm going to show you this quick graphic here, and this used to hang on Fenway. 9418. Those are 4 retired ball players, Red Sox ball players: Ted Williams, Joe Cronin, Bobby Doerr, and Kyle Yastrzemski. The numbers originally hung in the right field facade over the order which they were retired, 9418, and it was pointed out that 9418 was the actual day before the start of the 1918 World Series, in which the
Wow.
Red Sox won. So somebody in the late 90s decided, they got to rearrange these things and start retiring more numbers, because they kind of thought that was part of the curse of the Bambino too. You know what I mean? So so they started adding Carlton Fisk and Mo Vaughn, and of course Jackie Robinson's numbers retired all over the place. So nonetheless, 9418 stood for the test of time until the 90s. And we all know what happened in 2004, and that the actual real curse of the Bambino was broken there. So
Yeah.
unbelievable. All right, so let's move along here. So you got something here. John Smoltz, 87, from the Tigers to the Braves for Doyle Alexander. Why don't you explain this one a little bit?
Yeah. So, and a lot of these trades, we're going to call, I mean, I say best and worst trades. If it's really a lopsided trade, it's the best trade
I
for
agree.
the team that acquired the great, but it's the worst for the other team.
Yeah.
But Smoltz versus for Doyle Alexander. So obviously Smoltz, he pitches 20 seasons for the Braves,
Unbelievable.
wins 209 games, saves 154 more, won the Cy Young in 96,
Yeah.
led the Braves to the 1990 World Series. Cooperstown, how many division titles did they win? And now Alexander, I think, if memory serves me correctly, he did win, I think, 194 games. So the guy wasn't a slouch, but he played 3 seasons for the Tigers,
Yeah.
was 29-29. Definitely advantage Braves.
Yeah, when you look at comparison factor, I mean, we talk about best and worst trades. I mean, obviously someone's going to benefit and somebody's not going to benefit. I've never seen any trades that really worked out 100%, mano y mano, as they used to say. But I wonder what the reasoning behind this one. We're going back to 87 now, before the caps and all that stuff, before the mega money was coming into play here. Do you think this is just a guy like Doyle Alexander couldn't fit in with the Braves system?
It could have been that. I mean, the guy, if you look at his record, I think he pitched for 9 different teams.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he bounced around. And typically when that happens, I mean, there's got to be some reasons behind it. Maybe, I don't know. Smoltz was I don't know where he was drafted, but I mean, the Tigers thought he was expendable enough to throw him to the Braves, and that the Braves, that's kind of when they started their run, I believe.
Yeah, he was part of another rotation that had another Massachusetts native with Tom Glavine from Billerica, Mass. He was part of that Atlanta dynasty there in the 90s. Correct. Yeah.
You got imagine that. You got Smoltz, Maddox, and Glavine, like back to back.
They were dominant. I even watched them. My grandmother watched them because she was a Braves fan, Boston Braves fan growing up. And until she hit her 100, she's like, "What channel are the Braves on, Joey? What channel are the Braves on?" And that's TBS, like always.
I would argue that's I think the greatest rotation of all time was the 1971 Orioles that had 4 20-game winners.
Oh, wow.
But,
yeah, we talked about that.
But this was really close. I mean, you had Steve Avery was the 4th starter.
Oh, yeah.
He was a pretty decent pitcher. Then he developed arm problems pretty early in his career. But, I mean, what a great rotation. But, Joe, I did sneak another trade in here before.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. And actually, this is one of my favorite trades of all time. I don't know how I forgot it. I remembered it working out at the gym this morning. So on December 11th, 1959, the Kansas City Athletics traded Joe DeMaestri, Kent Hadley, and some guy named Roger Maris to the New York Yankees in exchange for Hank Bauer, Norm Seaburn, Don Larson, and Marvelous Marv Throneberry.
Wow.
So I mean, you talk about a one-sided trade. Larson went, and Larson he gained fame by throwing the perfect game in the 1956 World Series, the only perfect game in World Series history. But played 2 seasons for the A's, went 2-10, and 25-32 for the rest of his career. Don Larson, if you look at his career, the only time he was a winning pitcher was when he played for the Yankees.
Oh, wow.
But Bauer plays 2 seasons for the A's.
Okay.
Puts up 6 homers, 49 ribbies, 271 average, retires after the 61 season. Norm Seaburn was not a bad ball player. He had a 1962 was 25 homers, 117 ribbies, and a 308 season. Total hit 78 home runs, 367 ribbies, 289.
Oh, wow.
Not bad. And Marvelous Marv Throneberry is known for playing on the 1962 Mets. And that might be before your time, Joe. He was in some of the light beer commercials.
Oh, yeah.
And he never knew why he was there.
Yeah. Well,
but now let's take the flip side. So Joe DeMaestri, Joe, wasn't he the lead singer on the Brooklyn Bridge? No, that was Johnny Maestro.
Johnny Maestro.
Johnny Maestro, 16 Candles.
There you go.
That was actually before the Brooklyn Bridge. But and then you got Kent Hadley, who must have played pretty badly because I never heard of it.
Yeah.
I never heard of him. Geez, Maris. Maris led the Yankees to 5 AL pennants, 2 World Series in 7 years. Won 2 MVPs. Of course, he set the Major League home run record at 61 and 61, and won a Gold Glove in right field to boot. Then he gets traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. He plays there in 67, 68. They win 2 pennants. They won the series in 67 against your beloved Red Sox, right? And then he retires at the end of the 1968 season. So his last 9 years, 7 pennants and 3 World Series.
Unbelievable.
Very underappreciated ball player. He had a very short career, relatively short career, retired fairly early, had a chronic injury at the end of his career with his hand. But I mean, by all accounts, an absolutely marvelous ball player. And, the home run chase between him and Mantle in 61 was that was baseball gold.
Yep. All right. So 64, Lou Brock. I didn't know he was traded to the Cardinals.
Yes.
From Chicago to St. Louis for Ernie Broglio. Is that how?
Broglio, yeah.
Yes. You got it noted here. He was no slouch, throwing 18 shutouts over his career and going 21-9 in 1960. Very impressive.
Right.
Brock finished his career with over 3,000 hits, 938 stolen bases, 2 World Series championships, obviously a ticket to Cooperstown. Broglio was 7-19 with a 5.40 ERA over 3 seasons with the Cubs before retiring in 1966. Pretty lopsided deal there. Lou Brock, he's synonymous with all that base stealing and all that stuff from what I remember. But Ernie Broglio couldn't even tell you who he was.
Yeah, that's probably the main reason. A lot of these trades, especially with these pitchers, solid pitchers. Broglio had, like I said, 2 seasons before, 3 seasons before, right? Won 21 games, and he threw 18 shutouts over his career, which is probably more than any active pitcher has.
Exactly.
And Brock at the time was just a prospect. He really wasn't a proven entity. But look what happened.
So moving up the ladder here, 97, you got Derek Lowe and Jason Varitek from Seattle to Boston for a guy that I used to like for the Red Sox until he traded, Heathcliff Slocum. That's a pitcher's name if I ever heard one right there.
Oh, yeah.
Heathcliff Slocum. Some background on this, Derek Lowe and Jason Varitek, obviously they were in they had great careers with Boston. I think it took Derek Lowe a while to warm up in Boston because he really didn't have his best seasons until later on. For Jason Varitek, it was reported he came to camp overweight. They nicknamed him the Fat Catcher. And, he kind of took that and took it to another level. He was kind of big boned, so to speak, but the guy could hit and the guy called his own games. Varitek was very instrumental in the 2000, obviously they were in the division series in 99. And of course, 2003, they went all the way to the ALCS until they dropped the last game of the Game 7 to the Yankees. But, Jason Varitek's now in the Red Sox Hall of Fame. I think he's a Hall of Fame catcher. There's no doubt about it. But since Varitek has left, no Red Sox catcher has called the games like a catcher should. All the signs now go from the dugout to the catcher. So I think obviously that's a no-brainer, right? Seattle got the short end of the stick on that one.
Oh yeah. Well, I vaguely remember Heathcliff Slocum, but not very well. The
I
other
don't think
two
he.
guys, of course,
I don't remember him even being a starter. I do believe he was a reliever at
he
one
was.
point.
Yes, he was,
Yeah,
and I don't think he was even a
yeah.
closer.
And Derek Lowe, he was. He actually lived in the town that I lived in growing up in Quincy. He was always out and about. He was very. You could say he was very approachable. He was a nice guy. He still grants interviews and stuff like that. So maybe we'll try and get him on the Line Drive podcast.
Oh, that'd be great.
All right, you get the next one. 1982, Ryan Sandberg, Larry Bowa.
Yeah, Ryan Sandberg and Larry Bowa get traded from the Philadelphia Phillies to the Chicago Cubs for Ivan De Jesus. Sandberg would win 9 Gold Gloves, the 1984 MVP, and another, his ticket to Cooperstown. Yeah. And Ivan would play 3 seasons for the Phillies with a 139 and 249 batting average. Bowa kind of was, I think, a throw-in. And Bowa was a great shortstop in his prime. But
I remember seeing him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, but we're talking like he's probably at this point like almost 15 years into his career and kind of playing out the string. But I mean, great shortstop. I think he won several Gold Gloves.
All right, we're going back to 82 now. Not big money ball players we're talking about here. So you got to wonder, was it a personality thing, a talent issue? They don't want to play in Philly. They don't want to play in Chicago type thing. Is it one of those types of deals? Because you always try to wonder what prompts these crazy trades, stuff like this. Because, what if these trades never happened? We wouldn't be talking about these.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's an unproven commodity. Like, again, Sandberg with Philly, I mean, I think he played like a part of a season. So he was an unknown, like Lou Brock was in Chicago. And, they gambled. De Jesus was a decent ball player.
Yep.
But I don't know. I mean, you wonder I would love once in my life to be on the phone, just like monitoring one of these trades between two baseball general managers, just to hear the back and forth. Well,
it's like that scene in Moneyball where Brad Pitt just got everybody on a conference call. Please hold, do this, that. We want a soda machine in the locker room, things like that. You know what I mean? It might come down to that. Who knows?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right, 1965. You got this one, Frank Robinson.
Oh, this is one of the most lopsided trades ever. So in 1960, at the end of 65, it was winter of 65. Frank Robinson, former Cincinnati Reds MVP, was traded to the Baltimore Orioles for Milt Pappas, relief pitcher Jack Balchin, I think his name is pronounced, and Dick Simpson.
Who?
I mean, Robinson, yeah, Dick Simpson. There was a Suitcase Simpson, but I don't think this was Suitcase Simpson. I think that was Harry Simpson. But I mean, Dick Simpson might have been, geez, what a first name. But so Robinson wins the 66 triple crown, 66 MVP. Orioles win the World Series over the Dodgers, and Robinson would lead the Orioles to 4 AL pennants and 2 World Series over the next 6 seasons. And Pappas played 3 seasons with the Reds and was 30-29. And again, another, I think he won 209 games. Over, and now I do have a little. Supposedly, the from Cincinnati, right? The dialogue was that Robinson was past his prime. He was washed up,
right?
And that's why they traded him. I think he was maybe 32. It wasn't that old.
Okay.
But he had arguably, I mean, it's funny how he won that first Triple Crown. The previous one, I think, was Mantle, I think in 56 or 57.
Okay.
And then ironically, Yaz won it the next year, right?
Yep, I do believe so. 67. Yeah, Yaz did Triple Crown. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you talk about Robinson, the Reds went nowhere. I mean, their time would come a few years later with the Big Red Machine, but
right.
Pappas was already long gone. I think he bounced around with a couple other teams after that, but definitely advantage. And Balchin and Simpson, I couldn't even tell you. I mean, as ardent of a baseball fan as I am, I mean, I probably had their baseball cards at one time, but I probably traded them for a piece of gum or something like that.
No kidding. Well, the next one I remember very well, 1990, Jeff Bagwell. Who's that, right? Traded from the Red Sox to the Houston Astros for reliever Larry Anderson. Who's that?
Right, yeah. Who that?
Bagwell will win Rookie of the Year, MVP 94, clouded 449 homers for the Astros, landing him a spot in Cooperstown. I remember this trade like it was yesterday. We were like, why? And I think that's what got Lou Gorman shipped out of town. And I think the process of selling the Red Sox was well underway at that point, because this was probably, the most lopsided one I could see for a while for the Red Sox.
Now, Joe, though, I don't think Bagwell never played a game for the Red Sox, right? So, I'm assuming he was highly regarded prospect.
He was in the minors.
Right.
He was in the minors. And I do believe I want to say he made one or two appearances, but he was heavily hyped.
Okay. Again, a hot prospect.
And it takes a lot for the Boston media to get heavily hyped. So I just remember we had a sportscaster here called Bob LaBelle, and he would always mention people that used to play for Boston sports teams when they would go on to make, the big time. He'd be like, why can't we get players like that? And they still reference the Jeff Bagwell trade. Why can't we get players like that?
But I'm trying to, this one really stumped me because I figured Bagwell had to be a hot prospect. What were the Red Sox thinking? Because Anderson was, I think he had pitched for about 13 years.
Yeah, he was an older guy. I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think he had 29 saves in his career. Not somebody that I would see trading, a hot prospect for.
Yeah. And I think that's what I think there was an argument between Lou Gorman and then he was a GM and then manager Joe Morgan that caused a big thing with this too. Even though, like you said, he never was an official Red Sox main roster player, but there was a lot of hype behind this guy back in Boston. So
the GM got ditched after this one?
It was shortly after that.
Okay.
I think around this time, the Yankees were planning on selling the team. It's before, almost on the cusp of when Larry Lucchino and all those guys had John Henry and all them were coming in. So it was kind of on the cusp of that. But this is the time. These are the days that I just couldn't stand the Red Sox when they were acting like this. It was like, why are you making these deals, or non-deals, I should say. So
honestly, I think of all these trades that we're going to talk about, to me, this one is the most lopsided.
Yeah, I would say. Now we'll call it a trade, but this is the 2020 Dodgers. Obviously, Mookie Betts, greatest player for the Red Sox in quite some time. David Price and Brusdar Graterol in a three-way trade with the Red Sox and Twins. Now, I remember this because this was on the cusp of COVID. This happened in the offseason. Newly hired Sox GM Hein Bloom was tasked at reducing the Red Sox luxury tax payroll. Of course, there's no cap, but there's that. So for the record, Betts did not want to leave Boston, but however, we all know greener pastures proved otherwise. But so in return, the Red Sox got Alex Verdugo, recently traded to the Yankees last week. We got shortstop Jeter Downs, who's now at the Nationals. And then I had to figure this one out. We got catcher Connor Wong from the Dodgers. I think he just finally got called up to the Red Sox.
Okay.
Literally in the last year or two after this trade. We're going back to 2020, right? Here it is, 23. And I think he only played like 59 games this year for the Red Sox. So
right.
I don't care who you got in return and all that stuff, but Mookie Betts, unbelievable. And David Price was a hero in 2018. He was like on a redemption tour. We had gotten him. He had a crazy, weird season. He was actually hurt a little bit, and there was a lot of hype around him. He was making a lot of money. And finally, he put his money where his mouth was. And I think he pitched on like 1 or 2 days rest during the World Series back in 2018, ironically against the Dodgers. So he kind of saved himself. But come 2019 season, he was back on the DL, and he was kind of shortened seasons and all that stuff. So whoever they were trading, he was a no-brainer to go along with it because it was going to unload some money. But no one expected the Mookie Betts trade. And another interesting thing on this one, when COVID hit and all the rules changed and all that stuff, there was an article from the Atlantic Weekly that actually said that during COVID, certain trades could have been nullified because of the fact that teams were preparing, nobody in attendance. Some teams weren't even being broadcasted. Some teams weren't even allowed to have people in the ballpark, that stuff. So they were flirting with the idea of any offseason trades in 2020 could be null and void. And didn't take long for that article to come out and make the circulation in the Boston media that, hey, Mookie Betts might not be gone after all, but nonetheless, he did take off. Yeah. So that was a sad day. I loved Mookie Betts. He was instrumental in the 2018 World Series. He was a great ball player. He was an all-around ball player. He could hit, he could run, he could steal, he could obviously play center field. He was awesome. So that was a scratching our head off season. Don't forget now, this is the year 2020 that Tom Brady, our beloved New England quarterback, decided to leave.
Right.
Retire. But then obviously we know what happened at that. He went to Tampa Bay. But that was we didn't like that COVID year. And I'll tell you another thing want to go one more sport down the road. The Boston Bruins, they were on the verge of winning the President's Trophy. They had the best record in hockey until the season got suspended with I want to say they had 2 or 3 months left. And they didn't pick up the regular season until the summertime. And obviously they were ousted early, but they were favored to win it. And the goaltenders won the Vezina trophies and all that stuff. So 2020 across the board in all sports in Boston could have been, it was a nightmare year off season wise.
It was a very forgettable year period for sports, yeah. I think.
Yep. With the COVID, everything was just, do you remember them playing with nobody in attendance? It was stupid. I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah. And then somebody got smart and started to pipe in sound crowd, even for the players, because the players couldn't get motivated because they weren't playing in front of anybody.
Right. Taking batting practice.
Unbelievable. All right. Moving on. 1971. You got this one.
Yeah. And so in 1971, Nolan Ryan, Don Rose, Leroy Stanton, and Francisco Estrada are traded from the New York Mets to the California Angels for Jim Fregosi. I don't know. This might rival the Bagwell trade in terms of lopsidedness. So Fregosi played a season and a half for the Mets, hit a whopping .233 with 5 homers and 43 ribbies.
Wow.
While Nolan Ryan pitched for 26 seasons. En route to his Hall of Fame induction, Ryan won, just for the Angels over the 8 seasons, won 138 games with a 3.07 ERA, but he averaged 302 strikeouts per season. Now, the Angels were a very light hitting team. He lost a lot of 1-0 and 2-1 games.
Sure.
So even though I think he averaged maybe 16 wins a season. I remember one season he was 8-16.
Right.
And his ERA, I think, was under 3. Just didn't get the run support. And that's something that, now we really pay a lot of attention to. We don't necessarily look at the win-loss. We look at the whip, and we look at the ERA and things like that, hits per 9 innings. But yeah, he was a stud. Yeah. Even Stanton, the throw-in, hit 47 homers, 242 ribbies in 5 seasons. So even the throw-in did better than Fregosi did. Don Rose, Rose by any other name would still be Don Rose. I think he won 1 game in the major leagues. And Francisco Estrada, I think he sold programs at Anaheim Stadium.
And we're talking guys like Maris and Ryan and all that. They're the ones getting traded to the teams that all of a sudden they become the household name. It shocks me that, there's not that one-on-one trade, that one-off. Here you go. They call these trades blockbuster trades. Blockbuster for who? For the headlines? For the people reading it or what? Because this is another no-brainer. Why would you trade Nolan Ryan? Period.
I got to tell you a quick Nolan Ryan story, though. Sure. I actually saw Ryan. I was in the 5th grade. I saw him at Shea Stadium in his rookie season, 1966.
Yeah.
He didn't pitch much for the Mets in 66. He was a late season call-up. But
sure.
That's when my dad was a service manager for a Chevy dealership, and one of his customers was the PR director for the Mets.
Oh, okay.
So we could pretty much sit in the press box whenever we wanted. Now, my dad wasn't a baseball fan, but he was a good dad, and he knew that how much I loved the game.
Sure.
So he would take me all the time, and I got to see Ryan at he was wilder than anything. he couldn't get threw like bullets, but couldn't get the ball over the plate. Fast forward to 1993, which I think was his last season.
Right.
And now, so I was in the 5th grade. My oldest son was in the 5th grade.
Oh, wow.
I was living in Blue Springs, Missouri, which is about 10 miles from, I guess it's called Kauffman Stadium now.
Okay, yeah.
It was called Royal Stadium then. I always just think of Arrowhead Stadium. It's the stadium next to Arrowhead. But I took my son to see Ryan when he was with the Rangers. You're talking about a whole generation. That's an amazing. And he was striking out 300 guys in his early 40s.
Oh, wow. So that's a guy that no doubt got better with age.
He pitched, incredible. People say, well, he was a 500 pitcher. His career, I think he won 324 games. I might be off by 1 or so. Yeah. And he lost in the high 2s. So his winning percentage isn't that high, but his ERA is great. His whip is great. Although his whip is a little bit, in the beginning, he was walking a lot of guys, of course.
Sure.
He I think one season he walked 202 guys.
Wow.
But then he struck out 383. So
My goodness.
yeah, just I mean, he was like Dave Kingman. Either Kingman either struck out or hit one
Yep.
900 feet. Ryan either walked you or struck you out. But I mean, this is a blockbuster trade. But yeah, I think the Mets were regretting this one.
What's so appealing to me is that somebody went to New York and the others went to California. That's a cross country deal right there.
Right. And I think Ryan did not want to go to California.
Oh, really?
But, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. But I guess eventually he found his place with the Astros and the Rangers. I mean, he's a Texas guy, so
Exactly. All right, 66. We got Fergie Jenkins. Tell us about this one.
yeah. This is another fairly one-sided trade. So Ferguson Jenkins is traded from the Phillies,
Yeah.
along with Adolfo Phillips and John Hernstein, to the Chicago Cubs for another couple of pitchers, Larry Jackson and Bob Buell, both solid pitchers.
Yeah.
But they would win a combined total of 47 games for the Phillies.
Yeah.
Jenkins would win 67 games for the Cubs, including six. This is a great stat: 6 consecutive 21 seasons.
Wow.
And a Cy Young award, and he rightfully inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Again, same thing. The Cubs, I guess, wanted or the Phillies wanted solid pitchers.
Somebody they were.
Yeah, and they were willing to give away. Jenkins, I think, pitched. I'm really stretching my memory here. He had one half season with the Phillies. I think he was like 6-8.
Right.
So again, another prospect
I think Fergie Jenkins did his last stint with the Red Sox, if I'm not mistaken.
He did, yeah. He went from the Cubs. I think he stopped with the pitch for the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, something. I remember one of my first programs. I had him in there. I was like, wow.
Yeah. And I think he actually won 25 games one season for the Rangers as well.
Wow.
And then he wound up with the Red Sox. But another great pitcher. I mean, the guy went out every fourth day.
6 consecutive 20-win seasons.
Right?
Unbelievable.
That will that ever be done again? No way.
Yeah, that's great. It's 120 wins for a ball club in 6 years, in 6 seasons.
And the Cubs weren't lighting the world on fire. I mean,
no.
They had a couple of good seasons then, but I mean, you're talking about Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, but still, that's you put the butts in the seats, I bet.
You look him up on baseballreference.com. Look at his. I mean, you talk about consistency. I mean, guy I don't think he missed a start in those 6 seasons. He probably couldn't miss too many. You're not going to win 20 games, but
right,
40 starts a year because they pitched every 4th day, not every 5th day.
Yep, exactly.
Probably through 25 to 30 complete games. I mean, he's got a buttload of shutouts, complete games.
What would impress me, I don't know if they had it back then. I'm assuming they did not, but pitch counts. Like you wonder how many pitches they threw a game. You know what I mean? I don't know if teams were counting them back then, but I don't think they were.
No, well, I saw there must have been probably something, but I saw a graphic on Facebook that going back to Nolan Ryan, that he threw a complete game. It was a 238 pitch game, and 238 pitch, which is like two and a half outings for the normal pitcher now.
That's incredible.
And then four days later, went out and threw another complete game.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That makes you. That's my struggle as far as a baseball fan, where you have these guys like a Jenkins went out, a Seaver, a Bob Gibson, a Juan Marichal, a Jim Palmer. These guys went out every 4th day, through complete games routinely, rarely got injured, right? Season after season after season, where you got these guys now. They barely can. I mean, if they make it into the 6th inning, I mean, it's glorious.
Sure.
You got guys pitching maybe 2 or 3 complete games a year, maybe, and but they're always getting hurt, and they're throwing 32 games a year. Most guys don't even reach. I think maybe 3 or 4 guys hit 200 innings this year, but they're always hurt. It's like, what happened? How did they get so soft?
No, I don't. I hear you. What blows my mind is 6 consecutive 20-win seasons. That even on paper, that looks intimidating. Like, wow, unbelievable.
You just put the ball in his locker. I mean, if I'm the manager, it's okay. We won this one.
Wow. So here we go. 1969, New York Mets trade young outfielder Amos Otis along with a utility infielder named Bob Johnson to the KC Royals for third baseman Joe Foy. Now, Otis would patrol center field for the Royals for the next 14 seasons, winning 3 Gold Gloves, 5 All-Star nominations, while Foy would play 99 games for the Mets in 1970, compiling a sizzling, what do we got? Six homers,
37 ribbies, yeah.
ribbies, 236 line, playing one more seasons with the illustrious Washington Senators back then in 71 before retiring at the age of 28. Okay, who was the GM then, and who thought this was going to be a one-up?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It really makes you scratch your head. Like, what were these people thinking? And again, same thing. Otis was a prospect. Played a little bit with the Mets. Foy was, I think Foy played for the Red Sox for a bit.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah. I think Foy was in fact, I think he played several seasons as their third baseman. Decent ball player, but you never know.
You never know. And we talk about these trades back then. Obviously, money wasn't like the astronomical issue like it is today, but
not at all.
Is it personality? Is it people don't want to play for a certain manager? Or do teammates not get along? I've always wondered, what are the dynamics back then that would warrant these trades? Because you watch the old movies and stuff, you read the old articles, and there were some players and coaches who just did not get along, and they wanted to be out of town. And you wonder if this is one of those deals.
I mean, we're not privy to it, but that a lot of those things were part of the dynamic. It had to be that, the guy was a clubhouse cancer, or, him and the manager didn't get along, or he just didn't like living in, wherever. I mean, he wanted to move closer to his home, but it's ironic that there was a guy named Johnson and a guy named Dick in these trades. Just saying.
Then you wonder if it's other, extracurricular activities that these guys were involved with.
Yeah, maybe the
guys out of town.
The old sailor in every port, kind of thing.
Who knows? I mean, Mickey Mantle had his vices and all that stuff, and they were well known.
Oh yeah,
but they kept him as long as they could. So, but it's impressive. You got any honorable mentions on these at all, or?
No, I really, like I said, I was scratching my head. I did a little research, and somehow until this morning, the Maris one. And the funny thing is, I think, let me see. I think it actually happened because it was December 11th, so it was 64 years ago yesterday.
Oh wow!
But I mean, Maris was the Yankees kind of the 59. They were not in the World Series. That was the White Sox, the hitless wonder Whites, the Go-Go Sox, I think was their nickname, with Louis Aparicio. They small ball.
Yeah,
and
unbelievable.
They lost to the Dodgers in the World Series, but I mean, Maris brought the Yankees back to prominence. And the other thing is the one interesting thing is Mantle for his first maybe 10 years in the major leagues.
Sure,
they booed the crap out of him at Yankee Stadium because he was supposed to be the next Joe DiMaggio, and even though he put up some pretty good numbers, he never really replaced Joe in their hearts. But when they looked when they had that home run race in 61.
Yeah,
they looked at Maris as the outsider,
right?
And all of a sudden, Mantle became the
hero,
the hero in New York, and he wore that badge for the rest of his career. But I mean, so that was quite the dynamic there as well.
Coming from the Boston area and so forth, and finally seeing that movie 61, I didn't know that Mickey Mantle had to live in that shadow of trying to be the next Joe DiMaggio and all that stuff, and all the heels of all that, and the pressure that he encountered. And Maris was hated. I remember watching that movie, and if Billy Crystal was pretty good with facts, and the hate mail that he received and the stuff he didn't tell his teammates that was going on with his family and stuff. I mean, these are things that you don't read about. These are things you don't hear about until somebody decides to make a movie 35, 40 years later about what happened, and stuff is true, and you look back like, whoa, like this is incredible.
There was a huge backstory with that whole thing.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. He was losing his hair, he said.
Yeah. And Maris, Maris and Mantle were like polar opposites. Although I think they actually shared an apartment during the season. There was a lot of hype.
In the movie they did, In the movie they did. Yep.
Yeah, but they actually did get along. I mean, Maris was a family man. He had 4 kids, and I think in Raytown, Missouri. Yep. And Mantle had kids too, but Mantle was Mantle. I mean, he was the playboy.
He's almost reminds me of the Babe Ruth days,
Yeah.
Babe Ruth needed that big city limelight, needed to get out and be noticed and all that stuff.
And Maris hated it, but yet he thrived. I mean, it cost him a lot, but
that's incredible. Well, great list you comprised here. The Player coming through again with a beautiful script. So what's on the docket for this week? We got a couple other broadcasts coming up.
Yeah, we got Wrestling Remembered tomorrow.
Yep. We got some good stuff coming
I
there.
have Dan and Benny in the ring tonight in about another hour and a half, and we have wrestling historian George Shire, who's been on our show a number of times.
Shire, yeah, that sounds
George
nice.
Shire, great guy, and
Wow.
I mean, you talk about somebody who knows the AWA backwards and forwards, and I mean wrestling in general, but just a great guy. And we're going to chat about a couple of current topics and see what his take is on that, because we're
Nice.
always interested in his opinion. And
Now
then
you guys go live with that, right?
no, actually, we're gonna. It's taped. It'll be on audio Podbean later tonight, and then the Monty and Nefero YouTube channel tomorrow, and then of course we got to talk about the 30 on Thursday, because in my opinion, Joe, it was the 30 screw job last week. I
We'll
really,
have to build that.
yeah, I mean,
the December screw job. What happened there? That was,
and that's 2 weeks in a row. I mean,
Yeah,
you were on the press, you were on the verge of winning the whole thing.
I'm just going to be the SD Jones of that show. That's all.
You went, but you didn't even go to the well once too often. Unlike, I mean, you went to the well the appropriate number of times. I think,
we ran out of, it's called running out of TV time.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think you did a great job, and you could rightly be wearing the crown right now.
Well, let's see what happens on Thursday, but we'll be looking forward to all the other podcasts and stuff. All right, Benny, I want to thank you guys for coming on the show. Thank you for preparing today's script. I know you do a lot of research with this stuff.
My pleasure.
Great stuff.
We have
everybody.
Fun.
Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this, thank you for your support and so forth. We are What a Day, Joe and the Player. This has been the Line Drive Baseball Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.